Okay, so chapter 6 on these problems, the first one is very similar to chapter 5, and that we are computing the excuse me, the break-even point. So all I'm going to need for this one is right now is the selling price. So the selling price is $54 per unit. So I'm going to take the 54, and then I'm going to subtract my variable costs, and it gives us a variable cost per unit. So I have 24 for direct materials, 16 for direct labor, 4 for variable overhead, and 1 for variable selling and manufacturing. So my contribution margin is $9 per unit. So I'm going to add up my fixed costs. I'm going to divide by 9. So my fixed costs are $220,000 for fixed manufacturing and $140,000 for selling and administrative. So I have total fixed costs of $360,000. I'm just going to divide by 9 my contribution margin, and I get 40,000 units. So my break-even units is 40,000 for this. For number 2, the unit product cost. So you are just going to be adding up the variable costs for each year to find the unit product cost. All right, so let's take a look at the income statement. So you're always going to put sales first, and then you're just going to do the total sales is going to be unit price times the number of units that you sold. So you're going to add up each one for each year. Your variable expenses, you're always going to do your variable cost of goods sold first. So your cost of goods sold is going to be your, if you look up here, your variable cost per unit first. So go ahead and do your direct labor and your direct materials first for each, and that's going to be the unit cost times the number of units that you sold. And then go ahead and multiply your variable selling and administrative costs per unit. So you have your total variable expenses. And then go ahead and do your contribution margin, and that is what's left over after you have subtracted the cost of whatever it is you're selling. And then you have your fixed expenses, and I think that was already given, total fixed expenses, and then your operating income. So that's number 2. Okay, and then for number 3, you can just go ahead and round. And then for the income statement, you can just squish a lot of those numbers together. So again, your sales is going to be the same as it was in the first one. So cost of goods sold, you can just squish into just one number. Gross margin, you just have that one number left, and then selling and administrative expenses here. Okay, so these are the explanations in case you need them. So the contribution margin for the first one was 9. I think we added those together. And then the variable cost per unit, I think we did. And then here you can see the absorption cost per unit. So direct materials, direct labor, and then your variable costs, and then your fixed manufacturing overhead changed a little bit, as you can see down here, because your per unit changed. So with fixed costs, because as your units go up, your fixed costs stay the same, but per unit, it decreases. So if you think about it this way, if you have, let's say, rent per month is $500, and you make 1 bicycle that month, the cost per unit for rent is $500. Let's say that you make 2 bicycles that month. The unit cost per rent is now $250 per bicycle. So even though the fixed costs stay the same per unit, that cost is going to go down the more you make. Whereas with variable cost per unit, that cost will never change. But as you increase what you make, the cost as a whole will increase. All right, and then your cost of goods sold computation. So you sold 40,000 units, and then the cost per unit was $49.50. So your cost of goods sold. Year 2, you sold 30,000 units. Cost per unit was $48. That's your cost of goods sold. And then year 3, it looks like you sold 25,000 of this unit and then 20,000 of this unit. So that's your total cost of goods sold.